takes just a second, just an instant, a moment in time. One you'd like to have back, but one you cannot rewind. Every year in BC, more than 2,000 pedestrians are hit and more than 60 lives are lost.
Once it's happened, it's too late. There is no going back. There is no, I wish I could have, I shouldn't have, maybe if I'd. It's too late, it's done.
And when you're walking around town, your mind on work or what's for dinner that night, you may not think twice about stepping out into a crosswalk.
You have to look out and you have to be prepared that if that vehicle may be indicating or looks like he's going to stop, if he isn't, you have to be, you've got to have an escape route.
It's a space on the roads many of us take for granted, a space we feel safe, surrounded by some sort of imaginary bubble. Even though thousands of pounds of metal is coming your way, many of us just step out into traffic.
Pedestrians have to be aware that they have, although they may have a legal right-of-way, that doesn't necessarily mean a vehicle is going to stop. They have to make sure that they are looking out for themselves and getting eye contact with the driver.
Last month, a 73-year-old woman was struck and seriously injured in this Government Street crosswalk. Now police are stepping up enforcement. It may seem just as easy as tying your shoe, but brushing up on something you teach your kids may end up saving a life.
So we want to step to the curb and make sure that people see that we want to cross. And clearly they have. We can see that the drivers are stopped. The lady on the right here, but we can't see the inside lane. And the red car is coming up. He may or may not stop. So we want to just pause and make sure that that driver sees that we're stopping as well. And once we know it's secure, we can then cross.
But police say drivers don't rule the road either and have to be just as aware as pedestrians.
You've seen here, you've been down and you've crossed the road several times, and you can see that it's not always straightforward. You would think it's a fairly straightforward act, but everybody has to be on their game to make sure that everyone's safe.
And of course, there are fines for both pedestrians and for drivers. $167 if a driver fails to stop at a marked crosswalk, and $109 if a pedestrian just steps right out into traffic. But police say it doesn't matter what the fine is if you've been hit by a vehicle.
The pedestrian that was injured here a couple of weeks ago had significant skeletal fractures all down the left-hand side, was carried several feet down the road before they were dumped off the car, and without a doubt they were very lucky to survive that.
In Sydney, it's an issue that's on Council's radar and now on the minds of 1,000 residents thanks to these bright, reflective armbands. After a few pedestrians were hit on the peninsula, Councillor Kenny Podmore took action and started handing out the armbands.
But the response was it was amazing, people really did get on board with it, and yeah, there's a lot of people around wearing bands.
The campaign is called Glow As You Go and has been so popular, the reflective bands are all gone. Councillor Podmore suspects it's because people just don't realize they can't be seen by drivers when it's dark. And he says the bands weren't just popular with seniors.
It was quite abroad. Certainly there was quite a few seniors, and even people in wheelchairs and scooters came. We did have some cyclists that came by, families, that have picked them up. So it really is across the board.
Podmore says he had hoped the idea would be picked up around the South Island, but so far only North Saanich has expressed interest. And he says if he can pull together a bit more funding, the campaign could be back in Sydney in the fall. In Sydney, I'm Nikki Ewanyshyn.